Well, thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I'm going to give you a little so I'm Matt Pierce. I work for TechSmith, a company that's a Michigan-based software company. If you've used Camtasia, Snagit, that's us. Uh, I've actually just gotten back from a 10-day trip. I was at an international educational film festival, and realizing I had this presentation's been looming over me for months. And so today you're getting like, we'll call it a preview, and anything is subject to change. If you're at ATD International, this might all go out the window. So we're going to call it that. I'll also say, typically, if you've been at ATD Ann Arbor presentations with me or other presentations at events, I usually talk about video. I mentioned video. We talk about like you can use video, but it's a very video light session. So this is a new area for me. So as much as I presented over the last decade plus at ATD events and other industry events, this is kind of a new opportunity for me as well. So maybe if you have any grace to provide, but also feedback after, that would also be fantastic. Now, one thing as I get going, there are some activities that we'll be doing. Does the room have access to chat or no? Is that do they need to be audible kind of responses if we do something? Do we know?
We have someone in the room that can type for the room,
Okay.
but for the individuals, I believe it's audio.
Okay. We'll figure that out as we'll
Yeah,
go.
Matt, I'm gonna jump in. So yeah, most people are not logged into the meeting. So I am, so I could type responses in, or we can just unmute the room and let them holler back at you.
Okay. And we'll see how it goes. I think probably it's better, though. It'll be great. Like you guys will be able to talk on some things and then maybe give some common responses. We'll see how it goes, though. But so today I'm talking about something a little different. So just kind of, I can see the room, show of hands, and online you can use kind of whatever digital hand you have. How many of you are familiar with the idea of customer education? Because I know it's a little bit different than some. So I see a few hands. I know there was at least one person. So customer education is kind of like the cousin or a sibling of what our typical internal training L&D is, right? It's a little bit different. I've been actually involved in customer education since really the start of my L&D career. I did a little stint in pharmaceutical and manufacturing kind of world L&D. And then I came to TechSmith 20 years ago now. Hard to believe it's been that long. And started making customer facing content. And so we'll talk a little bit about that and some of the lessons I've learned along the way. But really the idea is that as we make products or services, as we're doing things that are externally facing, so not for our internal teams, there are some things that are slightly different and things that we need to consider. And it is a really a great point of opportunity for our organizations to start thinking about, how do we build loyalty? How do we retain customers over the long term? How do we actually get better reach into the marketplace? So we're gonna go through this. I do have a few resources. I'm gonna drop those in chat. I know, again, the room that probably doesn't help, but as we go, you'll be able to, you can scan these. These will come up again at the end. So I'm gonna, two resources that are related to kind of what I do. If you're interested in AI voices or video, these are really valuable. But I don't want to focus on those right now. Again, I'll come to them at the end. The first thing I want to talk about, though, is that when we think about customers versus learners inside an organization, right? Customers are like, they're not thinking the same way an internal staff member might be thinking. They're thinking, I've got a problem. I need to solve a problem, or I need to use this tool and they don't care about the tool so much. Like for my customers, they don't necessarily care about Camtasia. They might like using it because it's easy, it's convenient, it's accessible. But what they care about is they have a message they need to deliver. Or I have a screenshot I need to take and I need to mark it up so it's clear and communicative. So a thread that you'll see through this is that customers, they just don't behave like learners. And so the first thing I want to do is just a poll. You can scan the QR code. Yesterday when I was testing this, the QR code didn't show up on the actual poll itself. So I put the screenshot there. Just go ahead and scan that. You can ask, when you're learning a new product, you got a piece of software, maybe it's you bought some tool or something like that. Where's the most likely first place you go? Like you're got it in your hands, you're ready to get going. How do you go about learning? So we'll give you guys a second to, hopefully that works. If not, Let me know. Okay, so we got some coming in. Got a lot of just, we are of the people, learning and development people, I think are the, let's just dig in and try. Let's just figure this thing out, right? We see some, Google got some more people doing AI. A lot of you are like, nope, not asking the coworker though. Don't want to bother them. So, okay, let's see. Got 14, give it just another second. All right. Well, good to see that let's dive in and see what we can figure out. Love that. Also, it's interesting. We see YouTube is number 2. We just actually did some research and are at TechSmith, and we asked people, our customers, where do they go to learn our products? And they actually said number 1 was actually YouTube. People are going to YouTube more and more often. Of course, we see that from a customer education standpoint, people are looking for convenience. They're looking for answers. They don't necessarily care if it's the official channel, although it's helpful. They're just saying, I want to know what I want to know, and what's the best way I can find that. And oftentimes our content, our content gets buried or whatever, where you can't find it as easily. So YouTube is very accessible, as is Google search, as you can see there. Okay, so when you think about that experience, think about the last product you had to learn or thing that you had to go about learning from a company. What was that experience like? So how would you describe that experience? Was it positive? Was it hard? Was it, like you found everything you needed? And in the chat for online, in the chat, you can put that in there in the room, maybe talk about that. And maybe if there's some shared experiences, what do you think? What's that experience like trying to learn something new from a company? And specifically from a company, not just like, I'm going to learn, HR made me do this compliance thing, but like, I'm going to learn a new piece of software. I'm trying to learn AI. I'm trying to learn, I bought a new watch. And so how do I use it effectively? Whatever it might be. I'll give you all a minute or two. So Steph says, it's frustrating when you can't find what you need, or you call a service center where you have to hit 4,389,000, like a really big number of prompts before you get to where you need to, and then the phone disconnects. Oh, when things are laid out nicely, it's relieving. Yeah. Megan says, going to informal experiences, a mixed bag. Sometimes good, sometimes not so good, but formal experiences can be clunky and involve too much time. Sometimes we also make our formal experiences really formal. Megan, I've been working with I'm no longer on our customer ed team. I'm in the marketing department, but we've been working more closely with them, helping them with some of their videos. And I've noticed they have a tutorial voice. Does anyone have a tutorial voice? It's like, in this tutorial, and it's like, you're not talking like a human at that point, right? So we have these mixed experiences. It's frustrating because you like to learn the software, but you can't necessarily navigate the resources. Yes. It's an interesting experience, right? So we have these mixed bag of experiences depending on where we're going, what we're finding. And if you're on the internal side of that, you're the customer education team. One of the challenges is that you're trying to keep up, particularly with software. And that's the world that I focus a lot in, is that in the software world, there's this model of let's release often. And now all of a sudden, as a customer education team, you're saying, how do we keep up? And your customer is saying, why aren't you keeping up? And so you've got this experience where you might say, we know we need to cover that thing or do that thing, but how do we get to that point? And that's just the basic like functionality. So then how do we get to this kind of higher level? And we'll talk more about those higher levels later, so that our mix isn't just a support. We don't want it just to be support, because customer education isn't just about solving the immediate problem. It should be about growing the customer, not only because your product, maybe you got more functionality, but it creates that loyalty, like retention of like, they keep using your product and keep finding value. Guess what? They're going to keep wanting your product, whether to upgrade, continue to subscribe, continue to use your service, whatever it might be. And so we really have to start thinking about that experience. Just to kind of catch up on the chat here, I end up going to YouTube because I get more context out of software is used in real life. It's more efficient. Company's always more formal, not always aligned with what I need, takes too much time. Yeah, absolutely. Susan says, my husband calls my trainer voice my nice voice. Yep. Yep, absolutely. You've been just yelling at your kids and all of a sudden some phone rings. Mom says, oh, hello, whatever it might be. So I want to do a little bit of a level set here with customer education. If you're on a customer ed team or thinking about doing customer education, we're building lots of things, right? We're building onboarding for our customers. We're creating how-to documentation. All these kind of pieces of what we're building that could play into it. Now, we're not doing all these. We're doing different things at different levels, depending on your team and your kind of the maturity of the team. But what is it really focused on? It's either we should be focusing on the product, right? How do we help them use the product? If we're leveling up a little bit, we might be focused on the role. So maybe we're working with a lot of people. In my case, it's a lot of instructional designers who are creating video content, right? So how do I help them not just think about how to use the product, but how do I actually help them think about making better video, right? And that's a kind of a step up. We might be thinking about kind of the field, and we do this as not just trainers or instructional designers making video, but we think about like, what's the world of learning and development need from us as a product and from product education? How do we lean into that, right? And then and for instance, we might talk to someone like Megan and have her on a podcast and say, hey, Megan, help us understand the greater world, right? And then there's the organizational focus, because the organization might not be thinking about the same things that the customer is and like how they do the job. They might be thinking about security. They might be thinking about policy. They might be thinking about all the other things that need to happen. So customer education really needs to look across the broad spectrum of their audience to say, what are we going to build? What's going to actually happen? What can we do to help them to level up, not just make really great help content? But often, right, this is what it is for that learner. They come across your content. What do they want? They want to get something done. Again, it's not about anything other than I have a project and your tool is going to facilitate that. I go to, we'll use AI as an example. I go to maybe ChatGPT, not because I want to use AI. I go to ChatGPT because I need it to speed up or help me get past the blank page, or maybe I need it to provide context or information that I didn't otherwise have access to. Or maybe I'm going into an LMS. What's the purpose of the LMS? Is not to have an LMS. It is to have a tool that distributes content so my learner at the end of the day can receive whatever information that they need. So we often get this equation, and I think we just want to keep that in the back of our heads. Customer ed teams, as I've talked to people throughout kind of various industries and had guests on the podcast that I do, it feels like we're doing more and more than ever. Yet it's harder and harder to really make sure we're getting the impact we need, because we know we're in this kind of season of churn. AI is obviously disrupting a lot of stuff. It's like, well, what are we going to create? How are we going to create it? There's so many things that we could be doing, yet resources are scarce. We know obviously there a lot of organizations are kind of pulling back on budgets and opportunities. And that means we have to be really picky, right? We have to be really thinking about what is going to have the most impact. What's going to get us to where we want to go? And are we optimizing for the right things, for the right behavior? Are we optimizing so that people aren't, having bad experiences or feeling frustrated because they can't do what we just saw on the last slide? They can't get things done. And if you ever had a product, someone respond to you, like we get comments all the time. And when you get the one, and we don't get these comments all the time, but when we do, it hurts. It's like, I wanted to use your product, but I can't, because some X, Y, and Z, right? Couldn't figure out how to do this. And that's the worst. Software bugs are bugs, but like I couldn't figure out how to do it problem. And so we need to be really careful about, in customer education, thinking about how are we going to balance this. And so hopefully today we'll go around, we'll go through some things that help you think through that process. So a lot of teams what happens because of that kind of churn and because of what's the kind of where we're at in the industry, we often are optimizing for things that are visible and urgent. So when I talk to my customer education team right now, what's the most visible? Well, if there's a new release, a new feature, a new thing, that's where they're putting a lot of their attention, because it feels like it's the most urgent thing because it's new. The software team has made an update. We need to do that. But the problem with that is that we often then get lost in that. It's not that those things are important, but we often get lost in that and saying, well, is there more that we could be doing that would have greater impact than just talking about the new thing? Of course, we want people to know about the new thing, but what is it that we could do to help them to, again, kind of have this bigger picture? Now, one of the things I want to just clarify, this is from a report from Intellum. Some of you might be familiar with Intellum. They just released it like this week. The 2026 State of Education-Led Growth Report. It's got some interesting statistics, stats in there from research that they did. The question here that they put forward is, which of the following education initiatives is your team responsible for? So here we're looking at all the things that we're trying to cover. Well, 60% are concerned, and they could select all, right? So 60% said compliance. They're not, that's a lot, but it's not the biggest chunk, right? Some of them are doing certifications, which obviously have a bigger lift, lots of requirements there. 71% are doing onboarding, which, yep, makes sense. You got someone new customer, you want to get them into the product as fast as you can so that they can get moving, getting things done, feeling successful, again, build habit. And then a lot of skills and enable it, right? So they're that feature level functionality. So this is where our coworkers, our colleagues are spending a lot of their time in the customer ed space, which, I think is really interesting. But I think there's some gaps here that we're not doing that we can fill in that might even make us more valuable as customer education, but also help us, again, think about that long-term customer opportunity. So what is it that we need to shift, right? Well, first and foremost, if we can step back and say, how do we step out of this idea that we are there just for support? I think that happens a lot, and even internal training, right? We end up being this kind of like pseudo support role, like we're just doing kind of fill in the gaps, like helping people to get these things done. But I think we can say, if someone is a better customer, like if we can make them a better customer meaning could have a lot of definitions, but I think about a lot of this time as like a better customer is someone who is going to understand the core functionality of your product, knows how to use it, knows how to accomplish the job, and they're finding more and new novel uses, right? So they're not just that one and done kind of like, I just do it for this one thing, because that doesn't have long-term stability, because if something comes along that does a little bit better, they're not going to stick with you, right? So we need to think about, how do we drive adoption? How do we drive retention? And then even how do we have growth and expansion? So if you're have multiple tools, right? And for our case, we have Snagit, we have Camtasia. If someone's a Snagit user, is there opportunity to help them to see why Camtasia might fit into their ecosystem? And for some people, may never need Camtasia, right? They might not need to make that video step. But for others, there might be that opportunity. And I think customer education has a role to play in thinking across that, not just how do we help users be successful, although that's fundamentally important as well. So what can we do? I've got 3 kind of ideas here that I think we can play into. As I said at the beginning, for those who are joining, this is all new content. It's likely to get, some of this is going to get refined by May. I think I present on May 18th. So we'll see what happens. But one is building capability, right? Increasing their ability of what they can do. 2 is thinking about designing for moments differently. So thinking about like where that point of impact is. Where is it that they're going to need you? Are you in that space? Is your content the content that they're going to find? And is it more than just, again, if we're thinking about capability, is it more than just what button to push? And then finally is, how do we help make a difference in their job, their role, the things that they're doing? And I'll go through some of these as we go as well. So as we think about building capability, again, I want to be clear here. We're not just talking about how do they solve the button problem? Like what button do I click to add an arrow? Or what thing do I do to do X, Y, or Z? We want to start thinking about, how do we get them to be independent and thinking about the bigger things? So I think about a lot, again, and I'm using a lot of my software context, TechSmith context, because that's where all my life experience is that I can teach someone how to use Camtasia. I can go and tell you what button to push. I can tell you where to find the remove noise, add, drag and drop. That's actually the easy part. But how do I get you to start thinking about what makes an effective video? How do I help you start thinking about like what the process is to not just make a video, but to make something that's going to work? How do I get you to write a better script? Which Camtasia doesn't write a script for you. Now we have a product that's the AI script, but like we need to still help you understand what a good script is. So building this capability has to be beyond just the problem, right? It's got to be thinking about that user, that customer as someone who's got bigger aspiration goals and opportunities inside their organization. Because if we start thinking a little bit bigger, and we can be the mentor guide along the way, we can be the Yoda to their Luke. Then I think what happens is they grasp onto that and they become better. And I know from again, my perspective, we see people actually graduate out of our product to more advanced, particular like higher end tools because we've helped them. And while that's, we would love to keep them in our system, the thing about that is that means we've actually helped them grow in their capabilities in the long term. And you know what happens when I've met those people is they don't just like, oh yeah, I used to Camtasia. They say, I loved Camtasia. I don't use it anymore because I'm doing these things. I just met someone, he was part of the Norwegian public broadcasting. And he's like, I use Camtasia all the time, but now he's working in broadcasting, right? They have different requirements. Camtasia is not built for him, but he was such a fan. He loved Camtasia. He's like, I tell people about it. It's like, and that's the kind of loyalty. Like, yeah, he's not a single user, but I want him on my side talking to everybody else that in his organization or other organizations that he knows aren't going to be using, say, the Premieres or the Final Cuts. And so I think there's opportunity there to keep growing and helping people to not just solve problems. Oh, I don't know what just happened, but sorry about that. My PowerPoint just shut off. So 1 second. That was an odd experience. Didn't expect that. Let's get back on track here. So PowerPoint needs to give me help me not solve my problem. Maybe they just do need to actually help me solve my problem. Are you seeing the screen now? Okay, good. Sorry about that. Okay, again from Intellum. This was support versus education. What stage of the customer lifecycle do your education programs target? And this was super interesting because they were thinking about this problem issue, right? Like, how do we build our capability? This is where people are saying that their programs are starting to, are being included. So it's not just a training issue, right? That's not just like implementation, onboarding, although that's a big part. It's and product adoption, but customer education is sitting in marketing, doing marketing work. We do this a lot. It's part of the sales cycle. We found that we did some research at one point with TechSmith tutorials, and we were looking to see like, hey, who's coming and using these things? We found at one point that we had almost as many people using the tutorials pre-purchase as they were post-purchase. And we think part of that, and it's only hypothesis, is that people were coming in and saying, what does this product really do? Looking at the web pages, and then saying, well, let's look at the tutorials, and they could see what it actually do. And you could see then track sales from that, which was pretty cool. You can see retention, renewal, expansion, and then of course, advocacy. So customer education really needs to sit thinking across the wide spectrum of the organization. And when you talk to people who are in customer ed departments, where they actually live, like their reporting structure, it could be all over the board. There is no one formalized place where customer education sits. And so that has different strengths and advantages. Ours sits independently. We've had them sit in marketing. We've had them sit with support. And depending on where you are, it might influence what you're doing. So, okay. So again, we're kind of similar here. We're talking about from product to outcomes, right? We're thinking that bigger picture. One of the analogies I've been drawing here is that think about this as if a cooked meal is a product, right? You're a chef, you make a meal, and what's it? It's you're going to deliver it on a plate. That is the product someone's going to buy. But the outcome is much bigger than that, right? If you give someone a meal, they have the product. What do they get as an outcome? They get nutrition. Maybe they get enjoyment. Maybe they feel loved because you provide them a meal. And that's the kind of thing that I think where we can focus here is that customer education isn't just giving you a tutorial video. They need to be thinking about, again, the outcome and the impact that it's going to have. I also say that, again, thinking from a SaaS kind of a software as a service product, I love new features. Camtasia just released new features. I'm so excited about, like, I get excited about features and when products release features, but I think for the most part, customers really don't care about your features. They do, like they need the checkbox, right? I need to know it does X, Y, and Z. And they do get excited about things, but they're not excited because you made a feature. They're excited because the outcome has changed. They're excited because of what you can do has changed with it. And I think, so keeping, as we think about those outcomes, we want to be, again, just kind of moving beyond just where we're focused, because it is, again, just emphasis it's easy to get caught up in just making the thing that's going to tell the person how to do the thing with the one new thing, right? Like the new feature, new thing. That's what we talk about. Like, but what's the outcome? Like we just released Zoom integration. When you record with a web-based Zoom Zoom client and you've got a paid plan, you can now import it into Camtasia. Okay, that's great. Nice feature. But what's the outcome? The outcome is that now you can if you did the multi-stream recording, you can easily make it look like beautiful. It doesn't have to look like an ugly Zoom recording. You can also bring it into Audiate and trim off all the cruff. Like at the beginning of this meeting, we had how much stuff, it just us kind of waiting for it to start. We were recording, it gets started, but we can cut off all the extras, or you can go through and edit the transcript to get rid of all my ums and ahs that I've said 1,000 of already, right? The outcome is you're going to get a reusable piece of content that is more streamlined, easier to digest as a viewer. And that's a great outcome. They don't care about the Zoom integration. They care about that. I got now this reusable piece of content that I can push to my audience. So here's some of the things that we're doing just as a kind of as an example, as we think about beyond just features. So we got a couple different pieces here. So this is a series of kind of how do you do something in 90 seconds in Camtasia? So very feature focused, right? Boom. And so we call Zooms, there's a feature called Smart Focus. So you'll see that we haven't named different things because our customers don't know what Smart Focus is. We named it, but they don't necessarily know what that is. And so we have Zooms, which is a name that, people understand what it means to zoom in and out. So that's 90 seconds or so. We had a webinar that's about 20 minutes. So it goes in much greater depth, right? But it's not just about how do you apply the Smart Focus, because that would take less than 90 seconds. It's about thinking about how you do that well, right? And then we have this marketorial automatically add animations. It's awareness, but it's also giving you some of the ideas of different things that ways that can be applied. But then even on the bigger picture, what you see over here with my bearded face is this is part of a TechSmith Academy, which is an academy that very lightly focuses on product. In fact, I do use Camtasia as the example in this video, but I don't talk about how to do it in Camtasia. I talk about like when and why to zoom in on your video. So you can start to see this thread that a customer, if they want to learn how to do it, they could easily do that. They could get a little bit more depth. They could become aware and get some maybe kind of improvement ideas. And then if they wanted to dig deep on making a screencast, not just zooming, they have this thread of things that goes beyond just the feature. So there's lots of opportunities there, right? To move beyond feature to outcome. Okay, let's have a little bit of a discussion here. So let's collectively, in the breakout room, the in-person room, why don't you guys pick one of these, and then here in the chat, let's see if we can pick one of these topics, right? Like something just say topic-wise, doesn't really matter what it is. These are ones I'm familiar with. We're going to pick a topic, and then what would it look like to provide support? And then let's talk about what it would look like to provide education. So in the room, you can have that conversation, pick one, talk about what maybe like different things you'd produce or create for that support, and then what would you create for education. And then here online, we can talk for what actually can we do, Jamie, can we do like mute the room so they can talk, and when online we can talk for a minute?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that. We'll take a minute or two, and then I'll like wave my arms wildly to the room when it's time to come back. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay. Okay. So
Susan?
room.
Oh,
go ahead.
Just going to confirm with the room that they got that.
Yeah, they said they're muted. So which one should we do? What topic?
I was started to type. I'd love to see improved video engagement.
Okay. So, great. That's a bigger topic, right? There's a lot that could be there. So let's talk. What would it look like? What do you guys think it would look like if we were to create support content that's just like supporting that idea? What kind of things might we create or do? Put on our instructional design hats for thinking about this. I'm not giving you the answers.
I was going to say, okay, so I think of like how to use the reactions. Like if it was like how we have the hearts and the things in Zoom, the chat feature.
Yes.
Playing music before your sessions or during your video, those kind of things.
Yeah, some of those more technical, like, gosh, how do I make the hearts explode across the screen, right? Yeah, I love that. But you can see all of a sudden it's very focused on like the thing that you want them to do.
Mm-hmm.
So great, perfect. So now if we want to move beyond that kind of support, how do we get it into more of a bigger, and I use the word education, I don't know if that's the right term, but this bigger kind of opportunity to help them beyond just like what button to push?
When I think of video engagement, I'm thinking of like, how do I get, so I think Michelle's point is like, I know I've got engagement when I'm getting emojis, right? Like that's my metric. So that's, and I'm a data girl. So like, that's super, super cool. Love you. But I think about, like if I want video engagement, I need a great script. I need a great purpose. I need great visuals. I need things that move awesome. Is that what you're thinking, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing is I don't have a predefined thing that we're thinking. But I do think that's the right line. I mean, I would even say like we spend a lot of time thinking about like how do you hook someone, right? Like what's the hook at the beginning? And so let's like maybe our education would be about how do you hook people to be engaged, like to pay attention, right? What's the visual? How do you use visuals, or how do you use not just what sounds to use, but like how do you think about those as options? And then scripting, like a great script, great timing or whatever it might be. Steph, you got your hand up. Steph, are you there? So
If you're able to come off mute, go ahead and do so.
Well, I was unmuted, but it wasn't working.
no worries.
Sorry, I'm on my phone, but it's also on my computer. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we're good.
Okay, perfect. I was thinking more outcome focused, as in like the wisdom for the user, right? Like what is from them being engaged, like what do they get from it? How is it going to help them be a better professional? Some of those things that they can walk away and actively apply to increase the engagement, the more that they're bought in.
Yeah, I love that. The thinking about the WIFM, and not just in the it's not just that ground level of like how do I use the tool WIFM, but it's like gosh, how's this going to make me better? Like a better. I think about video, again, that's my space, but better video creator, a better instructional designer, or maybe I'm, if I channel Megan, maybe it's I'm a better data thinker, not just how do I use this data like a one thing, but how do I make it better? So awesome. Is our room back? Did I see you guys? It looks like you moved. Are you guys back into the room, or are they still chatting?
They're still chatting.
Here, we'll wave. Hey,
oh, they're looking. They're looking.
Come on back. Come on. All right. Are you all back, room? So I'll make sure you're here. Drop in the chat. Here, wave. I don't know. We can all, everyone wave. Betty, you're not waving. The risk of doing activities online, right? With mixed groups. Okay. Awesome. How'd it go in the room? Anything you'd want to share?
All right, room is back.
Awesome.
When we were talking about improving video engagement, and so one of them was like, can you support that? Because it's not a quick fix issue. But one idea was to provide just some generic top 5 tips. Here's how you provide video engagement or improve it based on what we know. And you just kind of have that resource available for people. And then in an education sense, it would be like looking at the process. How do you analyze your audience? How do you know what you're looking for? What do you want to get out of the engagement? Maybe a case study. This is how it works for this organization. And then here's how our product can help you reach those goals.
Perfect. We talk very similarly here in the online room. And now real quick, which one of those do you feel like most likely takes more time or costs more money to do?
Yeah, the education. Yeah.
Right. And that's the challenge here, is that we're up against like real realities of life, is that, man, that support stuff, I can do that pretty easily. But the education, maybe there's an opportunity for more impact, but then I have to resource it, and I got to think about how to do that. And that time, having built the TechSmith Academy, that took way more time than it ever takes me to like those courses than it did to just create a quick tutorial. So, well, thanks for engaging this. And one of the things that we'll see here, again, from Intellium is, the where people are spending their time in customer education right now. This is what the leaders want their programs to be doing. And so the reality is we have this burden in customer education. It's not just about, hey, how to make customers happy. We do have that performance, but leaders expect us to be able to help drive revenue. So what we have to think is, yes, this costs more, but is it going to actually allow us to get more people into our system? Are we going to be able to retain people longer? And their customer ed is expected to be able to provide that, that retention, again, performance. And then also there's this burden of kind of cost reduction. So why we're thinking we've got all these things before us that we can do the support, we can do the customer education, we can do a mix. We're also balancing, not only are we making people successful, we're trying to drive more and more the expectation for the organization, which is a burden, but at the same time is such a great opportunity if you're an L&D, because how often do you feel like, oh, we're a cost center, and gosh, we know cost centers are often on the block, first to go, right? Hopefully not, but customer ed all of a sudden is now like, we're driving revenue, we're driving retention. And of course that data really matters, and we have to be able to tie into the data to be able to prove these things. So there's lots of opportunity here. There's lots of costs and lots of challenges and things that take time, but well-run programs can really be an asset and benefit to the organization. And then when we get to the bigger idea of not just, like, oh, we help them succeed and use the tool, but we're starting to think about that loyalty and recurring revenue and recurring opportunity, that becomes really valuable because organizations want that. And I know not everyone's in a software as a service kind of organization, or that's recurring revenues, not the thing. That's my world now. That is huge. If I can get a customer to come back year after year, if I can get them come back, TechSmith is now, next year will be 40 years that TechSmith has been in existence, we're an old software company. We're small, but we're old. But we have customers who I meet on a daily basis, not a daily basis. Like whenever I go to events or shows or online, they're like, I've been using Snagit since, and they'll say like 1990 something. I'll meet people like, oh, I started using it in 20. They know when they started using it and they're still there. And that's amazing and a blessing, honestly, for us. I wish I could take all the credit for customer education doing that. It's also a great product. So a mix of things there for sure. Let's see. Okay. So we kind of talked about this, but a little bit here, just to reiterate though, but when we have good education, not just support, it starts to scale and impact, right? Because again, it increases capability. We can start to see behavior change. We can start to see different outcomes. We start to hopefully shift our users' intent from just like, I'm going to use the feature to, I'm going to be in the space doing this thing. Again, thinking about kind of like, because a lot of people are trying to figure out AI and how to use it. It's not just can I use Claude, but what's going to make me really good at using Claude, right? What's going to allow me to grow my capability? So I'm not just randomly putting in prompts, and it's not just that I built a prompt library, but how am I strategically starting to apply that to whatever work I'm doing? And so I do think there's lots of opportunity to align people and really scale and make customers from like, oh, I just do this one thing to I'm doing lots of things. And now it's part of the central workflow. And that's a job of customer education. We want customers to be ingrained with our tools so that it's like, it goes with me. And again, I'm very fortunate where I work and what I do. When I hear customers say, well, I moved positions, I moved to a new organization. I told them I need one of your products and they won't buy it for me. So I bought it myself. And it's like, I'm sorry that you had to do that. That's the thing. Your company wouldn't allow you to get it, but that's like super meaningful and touching. And the kind of scale we hope to replicate over and over as customer education professionals. Okay. So this was one of our second pillars, is designing for those moments, right? So if we're thinking about our outcomes, moments is really about this idea that there is not just one point in time. You're not going to get people to your tutorial learning center just once. They're going to be in various experiences, and this might cut across. This might be in product. This might be on your website. This might be on YouTube. This might be on TikTok. This might be wherever your customers are going and seeking out information. We want to make sure that we've got something there for them, and that we're thinking about what is the moment that they're having that would drive them to be looking for this thing. and it's again, it's not just one time, it might be over time, or it might be the fact that maybe they use your product infrequently and they're coming back because they have to relearn. I imagine if you're not in storyline, doing storyline things all the time, and you come back to it after a month or two, you might kind of forget how to have done something. So what's the thing that's going to drive someone? What are the moments of need that they're having, that they're looking for something? And then are you going to be there? Are you going to have something for them? Are you going to be able to create an opportunity for them to grow in the way that they might need to grow, or maybe they don't know they need to grow as of yet. I kind of mentioned that we're doing more and more, and I will say that I don't think content's the problem. I don't think we have a content problem. I think we've got lots and lots of content. I work on a team that it's called the content team. We make a lot of content. We make a lot of videos. We make a lot of documents. We write a lot of blogs. We've got more content than our customers will ever see. And that's actually one of the problems, is that we have so much content. It's a distribution problem. And we need to be thinking about, from an education standpoint, not just how do we create great instruction, but how do we distribute great instruction? And we can't force our customers to take it. You can set up an onboarding program. You can encourage them to do like a 90 day, like get going. You can send them emails, but we can't force customers to do it. It's not compliance, right? And so what we need to be thinking about is, how do we solve that distribution problem so that customers actually get engaged and want to use the content? So one of the ways that I've been thinking about this is what I'm calling the customer education hierarchy of needs. And there's different levels that we can focus on. And to be fair, this doesn't have as much depth on the distribution. That's kind of stage 2, I think, for me to work on. But when you're thinking about the content that we're creating, all of a sudden we have these levels that we can think about. And in my experience, I think we want to be up and down across the focus, right? We have long-term growth, immediate need, and we need to find balance. And your balance is going to look different than my balance. Your organizational needs will be different. And so what you have to do is find the right level set. How much of your time and effort is going to get answer the question, right? Help someone get unstuck, and we do a lot of this, and that's okay. It's good content. None of this is bad. We need it. It's foundational, in fact. But then how can we also look up the scale and say, what else do they need? Well, help me do it, right? Complete a task. So maybe there's a little bit more step-by-step or guided walkthroughs, right? That could be in the product. That could be a document, whatever it might be. Then we want them to not just only use and complete the task, but how do they get better? It's not just, can I add a Zoom? Well, how do I add a Zoom that looks good? Or use, timing. So tips and tricks, best practices. What are best practices, right? Maybe the person doesn't know. And so that's kind of, and then I'd say there's kind of this midpoint where we start to then shift a little bit, where these are kind of functional, tactical education, or, more like support. Then we start getting maybe a little bit higher into the education of hey, what are the use cases? We heard that from the room, right? What are the things that other people are doing, or case studies? What are they doing that I could beg, borrow, and steal from? Are there projects that I can go through that are going to take me beyond just a feature function, but think about the whole problem, the whole opportunity as a bigger space? We can help them to grow, right? We got academies or learning paths. We got certifications that Camtasia has a certification. If you take it, it's wonderful. You'll know everything you need to know about using Camtasia. And then even going higher is that the kind of the opportunity from a functional, help me be better at my craft. And that could be, and I will say none of these are fixed. You might find different things these could shift up and down. A podcast could maybe be more about real results or whatever. So please I don't want to get hung up on where the level is. These are just ideas, but maybe a podcast is really the thing that's going to help you get better at your craft. Someone listening to the podcast are going to get more informed about the ideas and bigger picture things, or maybe there's research, or maybe it's thought leadership that your team is running and doing. But as we think about this, again, it's not about doing all of it. It's about what is really the mix. What is the balance that's going to be most successful for your needs in your organization, right? What's going to help them? If all we ever did was a podcast, our customers are in trouble. But when you put a podcast next to our great tutorials and our certification and the other pieces, what it does is it gives you this whole spectrum of opportunity to say, okay, not only can I learn how to use the tool, but I can learn what industry leaders are thinking about video. And that changes the equation for someone, because I think at the end of the day, not only are they now a good creator, they're thinking about the bigger problems and issues about, learning science, or thinking about what's going to make for a video that's effective or good, not just how do I do it, right? So whatever your mix is, you're going to play with those different levels. You might have more on the support, or you might be at a point where you're like, hey, our mix is not where we want it to be. We're doing all support. Okay. And then it's an opportunity to say, well, what piece can we pull in, and what could we maybe deprecate, or what could we do less of, so we have opportunity and resources to do what we need to do. But I think really focusing again on your customers, understanding who they are, that with them, what's in it for them, what do they need, what problems are they solving, what is it that they care about, and then building towards that. I will say, as a podcast creator, sometimes it's really easy for me to get caught up in the things I want to learn and talk about versus what I think our audience wants to learn and talk about. And I know those episodes because I could see the results, right? Because I want to look at those numbers. And so with all that, you have different formats, and each format has a job, and you want to make sure that your format, whatever they might be, is serving the role. And this image, it could be all about communication. Well, how are we communicating? Well, we're taking pictures. These are really old communication formats, right? Using a phone. But we want to be thinking about like, hey, what format is going to serve the job at that moment of need? What format is going to allow them to, do the thing that they need to do, or grow in their capacity and understanding. And so we want to just make sure we're really conscious about that. And then I'll also say that you're going to have to test, because what works for TechSmith in our day-to-day and what we find work might not work for you. Every organization is different. Every customer base has slightly different needs. And so you want to make sure that you're thinking about those things. And there's lots of options out there. There's no end to the number of things that we could be creating. It's about what can you do sustainably? What can you do within cost? What can you do on a regular basis? We actually, kind of interesting, in the last 2-3 years, we very rarely ever did a webinar. I think we did 1 or 2 here or there. Now our team, customer education team, is doing 2 to 3 a week. And so that's become a format that they've adopted, they've owned it, and we see results from it, right? And if we weren't seeing results, they would probably deprecate and say, we're not going to do as many of those. And so you're going to have to keep looking at these things over and over. So again, kind of thinking about this, kind of already talked about this a little bit, but like thinking about the execution, like a little bit more execution, probably these 4 levels. I said 3 before, but you want to think about like, okay, these are things that people are they have something to do. They're going to execute. Let's get them that. And then of course we have formats that are driving those bigger outcomes, right? Thinking about the bigger space. So with that said, let's do another activity here. We got a few 10:30, right, Jamie, or 10:20. You want me to try to wrap up before that, or we're good? Okay.
No, you have all the way till 10:30.
Perfect. Glad we started early. Let's do this quick activity. Just by yourself, start off by thinking about your company. And even if you're not in customer ed, that's okay. Think about what your company does for customers, because we all have customers. Probably your company does something. What are 3 to 5 pieces of content you or that team is regularly creating? I can tell you what my team's regularly doing. So write those down, and then map it to where are they on the kind of hierarchy of customer education needs, right? And once you map that, start to ask yourself, are you over-indexed? Is there something you're doing too much of? Is there levels that you're not touching at all, or maybe not enough? Are there formats that you're just finding that like, oh gosh, like we're probably over-indexed on the number of formats, right? We use or video. We use video all the time. We do that purposely because we have a video tool. But so take a minute and just think through that, and then we'll get a couple of answers from the group, and I will catch up on the chat. Okay, I would love to hear 1 or 2 people. What are you finding as you start doing this exercise about your ecosystem? Does it balance? Are you like feeling good? It's like, whoa, we're doing a lot of one, but maybe not the other. Thoughts?
I have a quick thought. So, I own and operate an organizational development firm. So a lot of HR consulting, training, templates, tools, employee investigations, all the things. And as I was doing this activity, there was one number that was left off my list, and it was number 4. I'm not often monitoring results in a way that I should, or tracking progress. We might do a training, but we don't know if those 10 people improve behavior. We don't know, we don't can't often follow them to their department. Yes, we give the smile sheets, which what we might call a survey, but they're so superficial and they're not really tracking behavior change and performance improvement. So I'm just thinking and noodling on ways to enhance number 4. And I think I'm skipping number 4 for 5 and 6, but that's still more thought pieces and like the podcast and the webinar. And it's like, wait, but is there real practical data that I can use to be better?
Yeah, I mean the classic L&D problem, right? Like, how do we know that we are whatever we've implemented actually had the impact that we wanted to? And it's a lot of organizations internally, externally struggle with that. If only we had experts here that could help us with that. I'm sure someone can help us. But and I would say the other thing, like, obviously, if you can solve that problem, definitely solve it, right? And it may be well worth it. But it's also, I want to be clear, it's okay if you don't have level 4. That doesn't necessarily mean, oh, I have to have all of these levels. I think what it means is, like, you just have to be conscious of that. I think it's about being conscious of that and saying, gosh, I don't have that level. Well, what am I missing out on as opportunities to help my audience? Is there something that we could do? But the analysis might come back and you might say, the effort, cost, time, resourcing that would have to be in place to make that viable may not actually be worth the impact, right? Like, and so those are things you have to judge. And again, if you're all level, like everything you do is level 1 and that's working for you, awesome. You know that. But part of this is you have to be willing to dig into the data and say, make those decisions, because businesses are going to make decisions. You got to make decisions for business sake, not just for, oh, I wish I could know that. It's like, doesn't make an impact. So great comment though. Thank you. Other questions or other thoughts real quick? We'll take another one. Anyone from the room or anyone else online? Okay.
Okay, but the room wants to weigh in.
Yeah.
Brandon.
So I am in the K-12 space, and I do a lot of job handouts, one-pager type of deals. And the example I gave here is like doing a one-pager to show teachers how to take attendance in the system, might have some screenshots and things in it. And I was saying that primarily is hitting levels 2 and 3, helping them to do it or helping them to do it better, because they may have learned from a peer or kind of learned it by trial and error and are not doing it the correct way or doing it the long way. So creating things that help them do it or do it better.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. And what's interesting, where my wife works with kindergartners in a school, so it's a familiar space to me. But also I was thinking, like, okay, that higher level, and I'm not saying you have to do this, but also I think too, like, well, what's the impact if a teacher or aide or whoever's in that school taking that attendance? What if they understand the impact that attendance has on the students and their success, right? And so it's not just about, oh, why are we taking attendance? We just have to, it's for the money, right? The count day. But it's about student success and outcomes. And so if a teacher or aide or administrator understands the value, like, that's where that higher level could then also come in. Like, so yeah, we're going to teach you how to do attendance. Of course you need to do attendance, but then you can see how maybe that expands into an opportunity. And again, that might be something like, oh, they already understand that, they get that training, whatever. That's fine. I am speaking from my limited knowledge, but you could see, like, oh, there's opportunity to help those teachers grow. Because maybe then in the classroom, a teacher's doing something different to make sure kids are getting there, and they feel like the need is important. I was so proud of my son. We were just, my wife and I were traveling, and she came with me for a work trip, and he stayed home. He's in 8th grade, and we got in very late and came home. In the morning, we were texting like, hey, we're going to pick you up from grandma and papa's, and you don't have to go to school. And he said, I have standardized testing today. I'm going to go. We were so proud of him. Like, you're so responsible. Like, we were going to like totally skip. So, it's like, but he gets it, right? He understood the importance of why he has to be there and how the tests and all this stuff. But so I love that example. And I do think part of this process is going through the exercises, thinking about these things is, again, not to be prescriptive, but to start say, look at your balance, look at the mix and say, where is your program actually making impact, not just output? Because when you're mapping those things, you should be like, is this output? Are we just putting stuff out? Or is it actually having the impact that we want? We're doing these things because it's actually leading us to a change, or we're doing this because we're building loyalty, or because we're helping the user solve their problem in whatever moment they're in. But it's really easy to get into output mode and just make stuff. And I want to caution against that, because there is some amount of, you've got to make something, but the challenge is if you make too much stuff, do you dilute the water, so to speak? Do you cause issues? Or is it just you're spinning your wheels and not really making a difference for your customers? And we don't want that. We want to make a difference for our customers. We have a wonderful relation. I have a wonderful relationship with so many customers, and I want them to be successful. I want them to achieve the things that they want to do. I want to see them grow. I want to see them grow and be able to do more and make better things. So, part of that, we did this exercise already, but as your outcome, you're doing the kind of mapping, not only just map the levels, but then start mapping the outcomes. When someone does better attendance, what's the outcome that we're looking for? And then that might lead to other things to say, well, it doesn't quite lead us to them, advocating for better attendance, but what it might do is say, we need to do X, Y, and Z to get to that outcome that we want. So you look at okay, here's what we're doing this support, we're doing this piece, and here's the outcome we're trying to drive. And so I think you can really start to get into some really interesting conversations about hey, as a whole program, not just individual pieces, is our mix actually helping to drive the things that we want to be true? Is it just that they're using the product? Of course we want them to use the product. Is it that we're making better video creators, or is it we're making better instructional designers? Are we leveling up the field of instructional design? For me, I want to do that, right? That's what I want our program to do. And so, but you have to then look at the mix and say, are we actually doing that? And what would need to be true to make that happen or not? And you don't have to have grandiose, change the industry kind of aspirations. It can simply be that your customers are happy and that they're using your product. That's perfectly good outcomes. But you just have to define that for yourself, what you want. Again, I guess maybe a quick story here is that I know when I can help a customer use our product and I help them use it more and more, those are the customers that we retain better. Because they see value, right? And so we do need them to be able to use the things. But again, it's about usage for us is going to using the content, but not just using the product, but using the content, using the academy, using the certification, being able to feel like they're getting more value, right? I think, Megan, I'll pick on your organization, right? Not pick on, but use it as an example. I think Torrance does a great job. They have so many resources that if you want to learn how to do XAPI, oh my gosh, right? Or you want to learn about now the work that Megan's doing with changing kind of L&D and how we apply and focus on where we sit in the organization for AI. It's all these opportunities, Torrance learning can level you up if you're interested in, but if I don't take advantage of those things, if I'm not using that content, I'm not gonna benefit, right? And so we as a customer, customer ed could be thinking how do I get them to not just use the XAPI thing, but how do I get them to use the next thing, or use Llama as a project management? Because then all of a sudden we're in the Torrance ecosystem, we're in the Torrance world, and that ideally makes us better, right? Because we're applying those things, not just saying gosh, I wish I had a better way to manage all my projects or whatever it might be. So we want to focus on, again, those outcomes. And then, come on. I think the other thing to think here is that, when you start thinking in this bigger ecosystem, you start thinking through those levels of need, what's going to change, right? You're going to start changing your content to maybe be a little bit more intentional. You're going to make decisions of maybe a little bit more what not to create. You're going to be thinking about, how do you get the customers the most value beyond just the task, but the improvement? How do you focus your efforts? So again, you've got lots of options. You could create all that content, but you don't need to. You don't need to create everything. But where do you focus most? Like, where do you put your attention? I know I'll say that's hard. I struggle with that. I struggle to say like, oh, I want to do everything. I want to do this. I want to do that. Ask Betty and Megan. They know I'm like, oh, what if we do this? What if I do that? It's like, calm down, Matt. Just what's the one thing? What's the two things that you can do that would really have impact? The other piece here is that what changes is hopefully because you're focusing on those things, your results are getting clearer. And if you haven't thought about the data of this, you have to be thinking about the data. Remember what organizational leaders are looking from customer ed. They're looking for revenue. They're looking for retention. They're looking for reduced costs. You have to figure out how these tie into your data systems and measure. You have to be looking at the data and being realistic and saying, hey, we did this tutorial. It got 10 views or got 100 views. Is that enough? Very well could be. I'll give an example. And this is a little bit less customer ed, but it does play in trade shows. ATD International, right? Organization have to decide whether they're going to have a stand or booth at the conference. And so I think part of it is you have to make the decision. Is it worth that? And you might only get 10 leads, 50 leads. You might talk to 100, 200 people. Is that worth the return on your investment? And that's what leaders are looking for from us. And we have to keep figuring that out. But ultimately, all this leads to hopefully is more capable customers, right? We're building that customer base. When they do this, right, they're going to use it more. They're going to value it more. They're going to see the value in retaining your service or software. And then there's growth opportunities. What's the next thing that they need? They need another course, and maybe they need another opportunity to consult with you, or maybe they need the next piece of software that you've created because it's going to extend what they're doing. And so we want to just make sure we're helping them to continue to do that and grow their capabilities. So I've seen this year over year that when users become loyal, they become fans. It's amazing what happens. How many of you have ever received a trade show? Maybe I should say this. How many of you have given a vendor a hug before because you love their product so much? I usually high five versus hug, but I've gotten lots of high fives. Some of my coworkers have gotten hugs. We've gotten marriage proposals for our software and for the things that we're doing, right? Like, we didn't take it. We turned it down. It was, couldn't commit long term, but, we want our users to become fans. We want them to love our stuff. And now if they don't absolutely like, oh, it's my favorite thing ever, that's fine. But we want them to become loyal. We want them to become, feel that you're not just giving them a great product. You're giving them experiences and opportunities to do more. And you're making their lives easier. You become a partner, not just a tool that they use or a service, right? Gosh, can you imagine? You're just a service we use. Like, it's easy to get rid of a service. It's hard to get rid of a partner. So we want to help our users go to fans. And again, at the very end here, our customers, they're not the learner. They're not learners like internal learners. They are wild people going out and solving the problems. They don't care that you built a whole thing. They just want an answer. They want to know how to do something. They want to grow their skills. And I will say with that, in this video viewer trend, one of the things I'll just point out, tie this back together. Here's some research you can grab. People are not watching just short videos when they're interested. They're watching 10 to 19 minute long videos when they want to dig deep. And if this is not all about make short stuff, this is like, hey, I can provide real value. People, and they're like, I'm really interested in learning about, I'll use XAPI as an example again. If I'm really interested in that, I'm going to watch, you bet I'm going to watch a longer video. I'm going to figure it out. So lots of opportunity here. Good researches. We didn't talk about AI and AI voices, but those are some things that we have. I'll leave that up just another second here because I'm running out of time. Give me a thumbs up if you're good. I can move on. Room, we're good. Everyone took their pictures. I don't see any phones out. Okay. And then I do have a podcast. So if you're interested in leveling up in about images and videos, top of the pyramid here, hopefully try to visuallounge.net or just search for the Visual Lounge. You'll find us. We do have great interviews with amazing leaders in the industry, mostly from L&D. Occasionally some other folks pop in and they share their insights on video and images as well. Actually, next Wednesday, Tracy Cantu, if you know Tracy, is going to be talking about her new book on that episode. So lots of great stuff. Megan, I've repurposed one of your episodes. That's also coming up. You didn't know that, but one of our conversations will be out in May as well. So lots of great stuff. So TechSmith has some products. You should check them out if you haven't. Love to talk to you about them. And then there's me. If we're not connected, please connect. Someone commented on LinkedIn. There are fantastic learning leaders in Michigan. I feel privileged to be able to be part of ATD's community here and present, just be able to, share thoughts. Thanks for letting me meander through the presentation today and help me get ready for ATD International. I know there's time's up, but if there are questions and time for questions, I'm happy to stick around and do whatever's needed. So thanks, everybody.